The liberal academics strike again. This time, it comes from law professors at Georgetown University, pushing their hard-left political bias onto students. It isn't new. Lately, all we hear from college campuses is people in positions of power, the professors, punishing anybody who doesn't agree with their liberal agenda. And then students crying for safe spaces where nobody can bruise their tender feelings with opinions they don't want to hear about. What happened to colleges in the United States? What happened to the idea that universities were supposed to be a place where freedom of thought, freedom of exploration, freedom of academic expression flourished and was actually encouraged by professors?
College is the time when many adolescents begin to cultivate deeper understandings of their identities and learn the power of their own voices. For the first time, students are given the tools and perspective to call out injustices they see surrounding them. They're also not being stopped by their uptight parents who wouldn't let them do things like protest the war or drive the car or try out for ballet even though they were live and ready, Dad. Still, many in the press are describing today's protests as a resurgence of political correctness, mainly because it's easier to type that phrase than find out what's actually going on. The truth is that college campuses were specifically designed to be places that foster these discussions. Academia has long been an environment where differing ideas clash and churn, and maybe what will come out of these kids won't be pink vomit, it'll be the truth.
The dean of Georgetown University, a man by the name of William Traynor, released a press release following the death of Supreme Court Justice Antonin Scalia, mourning his death. This shouldn't be news, right? It's an appropriate press release following the death of a Supreme Court justice. But this is college, remember, so logic doesn't thrive here. Two law professors at Georgetown University, Gary Peller and Louis Michael Seidman, sent a campus-wide email in response to the dean's press release. And part of it read that Scalia was a, quote, jurist that many of us believe was a defender of privilege, oppression, and bigotry. One whose intellectual positions were not brilliant, but simplistic and formalistic. He was not a legal figure to be lionized or emulated by our students. Here with me today to discuss this is correspondent for Campus Reform, Andrew Guernsey. Andrew, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
The amount of hate being spewed at Justice Scalia following his death, Andrew, it's been shocking to me. Then this email, it's outrageous.
That's right. Justice Scalia isn't even in the grave yet, and they're already trying to bury his legacy with bigotry and intolerance, as they like to put it. So clearly what we're seeing here is another instance, as we see here frequently at the Leadership Institute's Campus Reform, of bullying of liberal professors to make students who ascribe and agree with Justice Scalia about the importance of the Constitution, that these students are being bullied into silence. And that's exactly what I'm afraid students are going to do when they see a campus-wide email of professors telling them that Justice Scalia is unworthy of emulation because he's a bigot and a homophobe. It's unreal.
It is. It's terrible. It's indoctrination. It's brainwashing. Now, one of these professors that was the co-author of this email, Gary Peller, he defended his response even after all this backlash, saying that he just disagreed with the dean.
Right. Well, look, these professors are entitled to their free speech rights. But the problem is when you're in a position of authority over students to give them grades, there's a very real problem of students who don't feel free to express their opinions in class because they're fearing repercussions from their professors. So if professors are going to express themselves strongly, they need to make it extremely clear, as these professors did not, that students will be free to express their opinions, because that's what college is about, this free exchange of ideas. And it's being threatened by this sort of extreme rhetoric from the left, in this case, that's really threatening the free expression here.
Right. I think you make a great point that these professors are free to say these things, even if you and I think they're stupid. But if they're going to be held to that standard, then they should actively encourage their students to be held to that same standard. And even if they hold different opinions than the liberal professors, those opinions should be welcome and encouraged in class. And we all know that they're not on a daily basis. Now, Andrew, I want to switch topics and talk about Purdue University. A staffer there at Purdue by the name of Jamie Newman, he threatened to rape pro-life students to test their beliefs, he said, about abortion. You can see the tweet right here. It's horrendous. This is unbelievable to me, Andrew, that there hasn't been more outrage at a threat like this.
What Jamie Newman did was absolutely reprehensible. And students across the country, regardless of your stance on abortion, should be absolutely outraged by what this Purdue University staffer did and said. Absolutely unacceptable in a free society or for anyone who values decency, really. But I think this case points to a larger trend as well about how pro-life students and students of really minority viewpoints are treated on college campuses, which is often with absolute intolerance. And to their own credit, these pro-life students stood up for themselves and said, look, we're just trying to talk about race in a way that talks about how the issue of abortion affects the black community. But Mr. Newman responded by saying they were racist and vile on Facebook, and then following with his abhorrent alleged comment about rape and threatening to test these students' resolve about the issue of abortion by raping their relatives. It's absolutely horrendous.
It is. And Andrew, there's a difference to me. I'm all for free speech. I'm even all for offensive free speech. If you want to say vile things, you have every right to do so. It's protected under our First Amendment. That's what our First Amendment is actually about, is protecting viewpoints that most of us don't agree with or don't want to hear. That's why they need protection. But the threat here, law enforcement, they're not even going to pursue this because there's no sufficient evidence of criminal intent. Is that the right call?
Well, I think the way the university handled this led to the right outcome in this case, because Mr. Newman has resigned his position. So the public outrage was sufficient in this case to make sure that he did the right thing and he left his position, because he clearly was not in a position to be serving as a staffer at a major university where he can make threats of rape, even if in joking. It's absolutely unacceptable at any university.
Yeah, I agree. I was happy to hear that. I was happy to hear that he left his position because people in his position, even though he wasn't a direct teacher to my knowledge, they have influence over a lot of the environment on campus. And if this is his attitude, it's clearly not in line with the ideas of freedom of academic expression, freedom of academic exploration, or free speech in general. Andrew, I appreciate you coming on the show. It was great to talk to you. We are out of time for today.